you can get what you want, but you got to work really hard, and it's going to take a lot of time and energy. You can develop the skills to get it. Okay. Now, so is there possibly another way to do it? I mean, okay, let's look at another way. Is there another way to actually do it in a shorter amount of time, to shorten the distance between the thought of what you want and the experience of having it, between the cause and the effect? From one point of consciousness, I'm here, and another point of consciousness, I want the experience of this here. Is there a way to do that? Okay, well, let's unpack the whole model of quantum physics. Okay, so you look at an atom. An atom is 99.99999% nothing. And I say nothing, I mean it's energy, it's nothing. It's a 0.0000001% physical and material. And it's a scientific fact. It's the mathematics prove that we're perceiving less than 1% of reality. Okay, so what we're perceiving then is the frequency of light, the wavelength of light coming off the sun, which is the rainbow, bouncing off of objects that give us the illusion of separation in three-dimensional reality. Okay, that's what we're seeing, right? We're seeing and experiencing the material world by light being projected onto it. Take away the light out of three-dimensional reality, you don't really have a whole lot of experience of it. You bump into a lot of things. I mean, take away all light. Okay, so the atom is both particle, material, and wave. What is wave? Frequency. What is frequency? Energy. What does frequency and energy do? They carry information. Okay, so the quantum field then is that invisible field of energy, of frequency that exists beyond our senses, that we're not perceiving, but it still exists. Just because we're unaware of it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Okay, so how much of your waking day, in your waking life, do you put your attention on matter? And how much of your waking day do you put your attention on frequency and energy? Well, throw in the hormones of stress, and your attention's on your body, on the environment and time. Where you place your attention is where you place your energy. So now all of your energy and attention is invested in this three-dimensional reality, and it appears really real because that's where our attention is. Okay.
Most people keep their attention, always their awareness on their body. They keep their attention on everything in their environment, people and things. Their brain is always scanning everything around us to determine what's known and unknown. And, we do that all the time. So our research shows that the moment you take your attention off your body and you go from somebody to nobody, you take your attention off the people in your life and go from who you identify with, from someone to no one. And so many people spend their whole life building an identity of being someone. Take your attention off your cell phone, your computer, your car, and go from something to nothing. Take your attention off where you're sitting, where you need to be, someplace you have to go from somewhere to nowhere. And take your attention off time, linear, thinking about the predictable future or the familiar past, and fall into the generous present moment and go from some time to no time. Then all you're left with is consciousness. And that's the moment you're no longer playing by those same rules of matter to matter. And there's a very elegant moment that takes place in the brain. In fact, it's a formula. Just like you doing sports, it just becomes a formula.
Sure.
And then you change the formula and you undo it, right? So when you no longer are identifying with your body, your environment, and time, that's the moment you're pure consciousness.
Yes.
Awareness that has nothing to do with local space and time. And now, that's when because the brain doesn't change the brain. It takes a long time. It takes a long time for the personality to change the personality, for the ego to change the ego. The programs to change the programs takes forever. Model takes a long time to change matter. But when you're in this moment, you're no longer playing by those rules. Consciousness is the phenomenon above matter. In fact, consciousness is beginning to activate or manipulate circuits in the brain. People just think the brain is creating consciousness. No, consciousness is executing the brain, right? So then, if the brain can change, then the mind doesn't change the brain. Mind is the brain in action. It's consciousness that changes it. So when people begin to disengage and get beyond themselves, you are at your absolute best when you get beyond yourself. And getting the person to that point, they reach that generous present moment where they just feel connected. And when they're in that place, all the things they thought they wanted, they actually no longer want because they feel like they already have them. So then imagine living your life from that place. The formula then is that it requires a clear intention, which is a coherent brain. And when you're living stressed out and something goes wrong and you're threatened or you can't predict an outcome or you have the perception that something's getting worse or you can't control it, you switch on that fight or flight nervous system that we talked about. Now, here's what happens. When that occurs, you start shifting your attention from one person to one problem, to one thing, to another person, to another place, because your brain is trying to predict the next moment. Well, every one of those people and things and places has this neurological network in your brain. So as you shift your attention from one to the next, it's like a lightning storm in the clouds. Your brain starts firing very incoherently. When your brain is incoherent, you're incoherent. And when you're living by the hormones of stress, not a time to create, not a time to open your heart, not a time to learn, not a time to trust. And it's a time to run, fight, or hide. So people spend 70% of their time of their life. It's got a lot of energy to do amazing things. And you know when someone's present with you in your life because they're paying attention to you. And you know when they're not present because they're not paying attention to you. So the act of getting more present means you're putting a lot of energy in the present moment, and you're taking your power back from all these things and people in your life. So we teach people this. As they start breaking through and they start being able to unfold into this field as an awareness, and they're not putting their attention on their boss or their ex or their wife or their kids or their cell phone or their WhatsApp or their Facebook, they're not thinking at all. So then, as they're sensing the space, they can't think. And if you can't think, you can't analyze. And if you can't analyze, the analytical mind is what separates the conscious mind from the subconscious. You just open the door.
Wow.
And so now you can reprogram in there, right? So then, it's so important then that of the infinite places you can put your attention, let's put it on your heart. Now, where you place your attention is where you place your energy. Why? Because we want this center to bloom. 1,400, 1,300 different chemicals that we store and regenerate the body. Let's breathe. Let's open this up. Let's practice this. Let's start learning how to lead with our heart. A different consciousness. Yeah, in the beginning, it's a little difficult, but you stay with it and you practice it, pedal by pedal by pedal, placing your attention there, you're putting your own life force back into your heart. You're turning your love inward, and the body will start responding. And in a week's time, if we're doing that 3 times a day or over and over again, sooner or later, that thing's going to start blooming. And just like when your sexual organs are aroused and they're engorged with blood, this center, when you start feeling love, you make a chemical called oxytocin. Oxytocin signals nitric oxide. Nitric oxide signals a chemical called derived endothelial relaxing factor. You know what that is? It causes the arteries in your heart to literally open up. So your heart is going to be filled with blood and oxygen and nutrients. It's physiological. It's going to feel full. You're going to have a heart-on. Sure, you've done it so many times it makes you feel like you're connected to your future. Well, that's a conditioning as well. If you have the thought of your future and you feel the lack that it's not there, then you're back to the victim, right? But if you can have the thought, and the thought actually produces, just like fear, the thought of something terrible happening in your life creates the feeling of fear, the thought of something wonderful in your life creating the feeling of gratitude. Then when you think about your future, you begin to emotionally condition your body into that future. Now here's the payoff. Thoughts are the electrical charge in the quantum field, and feelings are the magnetic charge in the quantum field. And how you think and how you feel broadcasts information and energy into the field. So
into the collective field.
Into the unified field. So the question is, what are you broadcasting every single day? So then, we know that once you begin to self-regulate, you begin to open your heart, just in that small exercise that we did, the act of creating that kind of coherence in your heart begins to produce a measurable magnetic field up to 3 meters wide. That heart is actually producing a resonance. That energy, that frequency carries information. And when your heart is open, this is our center of oneness. This is our center of wholeness. This is the union of polarity and duality. This is the connection of opposites. So when the heart starts to become activated and we start to feel whole, and it begins to put that energetic pattern into the field, that frequency can carry the thought of your health. It can carry the thought of your wealth. The frequency of suffering carries different thoughts. It can't carry the thought of health.